Okay, you know how this works. In this video, I'm going to be ranking my favourite high gain amplifiers of all time. And it's 2024, so there are an unbelievable amount of high gain amps out there, all kinds of budgets and price ranges. So I'm not going to be able to cover all of them. I'm going to cover the ones that I've either tried, owned, or spent a considerable amount of time with, enough so that I can build up a reasonable opinion. And obviously, these are all just my opinions. They're not facts in any way. They're all just my subjective opinions, so don't get insulted or upset in any kind of way. It's just a bit of fun. So with all that being said, let's just get started. I've never actually done one of these tier list videos before, but it sounds pretty fun, so let's find out if it is. So I've decided to go with 5 different positions on the tier list. The first one, S tier. I'm going to limit myself to just 2 on the S tier. Obviously, D tier is something that I don't like, not got no interest in, and then sort of everything in between. So let's begin with this 5150. So this is, in the picture, it's a 5152. Let's take it as a 5152, and in that case, I would probably put this on the B tier. If it was the original 5150, it would be higher. I prefer it for just a more raw, you know, that kind of early 2000s metalcore, just like Tube Screamer, Kill Switch Engage type thing. I spent quite a bit of time with the 6505 and the 5152, and yeah, they're more versatile, definitely, but that core sound which you want a 5154 is really only, you can get close with the 5152, but it's not a 5150. Okay, next up is the EVH 5153, which I think is one of the best lead guitar. You know what? It's one of the best lead sounds that you can get. And that channel too, the blue channel as well, is just such a good rhythm sound as well. I've got a combo, the 5150, 50 watt, and it's got a closed back construction. And that blue channel for rhythms is just unbeatable, really. For that kind of sound, it is instant Eddie. And it's one of those amps that definitely doesn't need a boost. I would say this is an A tier amp. I like everything about this amp. I like it's got 3 channels. I like that it's MIDI, the one I have anyway is MIDI controllable. On the heads you can actually turn on or off the effects loop, and I think that's really useful in a live situation, just to kick your delay in or whatever whenever you need it. On the combo version that I've got is, say, reverb, you turn on and off. I'd prefer the effects loop switchable on mine, but that's not what I've got. Definitely an A tier amp. It covers so much ground. It's so versatile. The cleans, it does suffer. My one suffers because it's one of the older ones that doesn't have the newer concentric pot to control the clean. The newer ones, the clean sounds are really, really good. My one, not so much, but still, it covers so much that, yeah, we'll have this as an A tier amp. Next up is the Marshall JCM 900, but the high gain dual reverb version, which I've spent a lot of time with. I've had them, I've fought with them, I've wanted to love them. It is the ultimate sort of underdog Marshall that I just wanted to be good so much, and it's on the C list, C tier for me, because I shouldn't need to fight so much with an amp to get it to sound good. There's been moments where I've got it there, and it's again, it's 2 channels. So you're a bit limited there. So when it comes to a solo boost or whatever, you need something like an EQ or an MXR micro amp in the effects loop to give you that boost. It's not a D tier amp. They're definitely not, but it's not a better sound than the 5152 for me. But next up is the JCM 900 SLX, which is a totally different, it's got no diode clipping or anything like that. It's a pure valve circuit. But more importantly than that, it's got a switchable master volume. So you have your rhythm sound set up, and then you can have your volume boost. So when it comes to your solos or bits in the set where you want to be more kind of accented and just really push through a bit more, you can set that second master volume, and it sounds so good. Rolling back the volume on your guitar, depending on where you got the sensitivity set, these amps go to, like, it's a real Spinal Tap sort of thing, they go to 20, and it's got 2 gain controls. But if you get them just right, you can roll off the volume, get a decent clean sound. And I know that was one of my criticisms with the 4100, the dual reverb, but I think that this one sounds so good that it kind of gets a pass in that area. So I'm going to put the SLX on, I'm going to put it on the B tier. Friedman BE100, you just can't get, I think that's a BE100. Let's just say it's the BE100. You cannot get a bad sound out of that amp. It's the perfect Marshall. it's, you know, the way I describe it is, it's what I want a Marshall to sound like. There is no Marshall that actually sounds like that. But when you've listened to a Marshall on a recording that's gone through the recording process of the preamps and the compressors and the desk, and it comes out as this perfect Marshall sound, and you just get that out of the box with the Friedman, and I love that. And the effects loop is so well designed. It takes pedals in the loop so well, better than any other Marshall, and definitely better than any Soldana or anything like that. I'm going to say that this is an A tier amp. It's almost perfect. Engel, this one is the Richie Blackmore signature, and it's a really kind of dry gain, and it's so unforgiving that your mistakes are going to just cut through the mix so much, and it's going to make you a better player. And because of that, it's probably not going to score as high as you'd think, because when you're playing live, things can get a bit sloppy. I kind of feel like I need that slight bit of forgiveness, and you don't get that from the Engel. I went to see Last in Line with Vivian Campbell, Vivian Campbell's band, and he was using, I think, one or two of these, and it was the loudest. And you could hear it was coming from the stage as well. It was the loudest amp that I've ever heard. I've never been in a room with a band or amp that sounded that loud. It sounded perfect. It sounded, there couldn't have been a more perfect sound for that, the way he was playing, and, you know, his style and everything, because he doesn't make mistakes and he doesn't need that forgiveness. So you want to hear every note that he's playing, and that's what the amp does. That, and I've heard other people as well, other really good players, they use that, and it comes across so well live, and it just cuts through any mix. You know, it's an A tier amp. It's not S tier for me, probably for other people. And when I listen to other players, maybe. JCM 2000, specifically the DSL, let's say the DSL 50, is actually not an amp that I've spent too much time with, but I've been in bands with other people that have, second guitarists that have used this amp. And, you know, I've seen a lot of bands that have used this amp as well, and I have played through it. And I've seen Gary Moore play through it, and he could probably play through anything and he would sound good. So I don't know if that counts, because it sounded unbelievable, but he could have probably played for a Spider 5 or Spider 2 or whatever, and it would have sounded unbelievable. So I can't judge it on that. I think that it's better than the 900 high gain dual reverb, definitely. I don't think it's better than the SLX. I think it's slightly behind the SLX, but there's nothing in between the SLX and the 4100. So I'd say it's more on the level of the SLX than the high gain dual reverb. So I'm going to put that on the B tier list. It's an amp that I do really like, and it's an amp that is the perfect kind of rental backline amp. If you turn up at a gig and one of those is there, you can get a decent sound out of it. If you're using a modeler or something, straight into the effects loop and use it as a power amp, works perfectly well. Oh, this is the Orange Dark Terror, the dual dark. The Dark Terror, the mini one, love that amp. Sounds so good. I had one, not for long because it got stolen, but I've played the dual dark, and it's just like a fizzy tin of beans. Like, I don't know what it is about it, because most oranges I plug into, and I always forget like how much gain is available on a lot of oranges. It always surprises me. Don't know why. I always expect it to be a lot more sort of JCM 800 or below, but they always impress. But the amp it is very gainy. All the gain you want is there. But I saw this band once, and both guitarists were using it, and they were unbelievable players. They were doing like synchronized sweep picking and all this mad stuff, but the sound was just piercing and horrible. And I really like Orange amps, and I really like the people at Orange amps. They are some of the nicest people that you can meet. But that amp in particular is just not for me. I do like Orange amps. I use Orange Pedal Baby live. I think it's just the best thing ever for like modelling amps and that kind of thing. But the dual dark, it's a D list. It's D tier for me. Sorry, Orange. Right, the JVM, again, not an amp that I've spent too much time with, but I've been in bands with. You know what? I've played this amp. I've played with people who are using this amp in bands, and some it is just the worst sound I've ever heard, and some it's brilliant. So this amp is one of those that you really need to know how to tweak it. There's so many options there. You've got 4 channels and I think like 3 modes within those channels. There's so many options and so many things that can go wrong, but there's some brilliant sounds in there. So going by the fact I have heard them sound amazing, I've never got an amazing sound out of it myself, but I've never spent long enough to actually develop something. I think just judging by my experience with them, it's probably, I'd say it's a B tier. So this next one is the Mesa Mark or Mesa Mark 5. They say it's the Mark 5, but Mark series amps. The Mark 5 I have heard Again, very similar to the JVM. I've heard some really, really bad sounds, like Mesa amps. They've got that interactive kind of active control within the EQ, so each control really interacts with the next control. So you've really got to know what you're doing. You've really got to spend some time. It's not just like a JCM 900 or 800 or whatever, where you can just set them all at 2 o'clock or 10 o'clock or whatever and play. You've really got to have some kind of finesse when dialing in any kind of Mesa amp, really. With the Mark series and the Rectifier series especially, you can't just plug in and go. I've heard some of the most unbelievable sounds come from a Mark series amp, and because of that, I'm going to put it on the A tier list because it's versatile. It has some unbelievable tones if you tweak it right. Reliability of the Mesa stuff is just unbelievable. Yeah, I think it deserves to be on the A tier list. The Tronti MT15 is such a good amp, but it's 15 watts, and it's a loud 15 watts, and people say, oh yeah, it can compete with a drummer. It can't compete with a drummer. It can compete with a drummer. It can't compete with my drummer because you need some volume to compete with him. He's a monster, and it just can't. And obviously now you've got the MC100, and that can keep up with him, but the MC15... And the other problem with the MC15 is the master volume. It's one of those amps where it's like off or on, and there's not much in between to get that kind of home playing level. So for recording, amazing amp. For home use, it's a bit unusable, unless you've got an attenuator or maybe put like a little black box in the loop or something that might help. So you can't really use it at home, and I can't really use it at a gig because the volume my drummer plays. So it's a bit useless to me, which is so annoying because it sounds so good. The clean sound is brilliant. It's like a Fender Twin, and then the gain sound is exactly what I want in a gain sound, but I can't get it loud enough. No matter where I put this, it doesn't make any sense. So I love PRS. Mark Tronti is one of my favourite guitarists, so let's put on a B tier. Fryette Pitbull, one of the earliest kind of boutique amps that I heard in a live situation, and it's one of those sounds that just sort of stuck with me forever. It helped that the player was unbelievable, but the sound is so good. For me, it's an A tier. I don't think they get the recognition that they deserve. I don't think enough people talk about them. The VHT or Fryette Pitbull, for that sound, it's a perfect amp. Dual rectifier or triple rectifier. Let's say it's a dual rectifier because triple rectifiers are a bit funny with me. I prefer the sound of a dual rectifier. I've had both. Don't know why. The dual sounded better to me, so let's go with the dual rectifier. I've spent a long time with rectifiers. They are the most frustrating amp that I've ever played. The sound in my head that I want to come from a rectifier, you got to do a lot of processing to make that happen. I think everybody's got their own idea of what a rectifier sounds like. And for me, growing up with the nu metal sound and the pop punk sound and the metalcore sound, they were all using this amp, but it's all a very different kind of sound. So there are a lot of versions of that rectifier sound, and then you get into the 2 channels and the Rev Cs, and it gets a bit much, really. A dual rectifier with a tube screamer in front of it, or an SD one, for me, is one of the ultimate sounds, and I'm going to put that in the A tier. But again, it's one of those amps that needs a lot of tweaking. The controls are not easy. You can't just treat it like a Marshall. It's very different. It's built like a tank, and it has to be paired with the right cab. Playing one of these through a Marshall 4x12 with the 75s, not good. Decent quality cab, better speakers or different speakers, and you'll get a good sound. Orange Rockaverb, loads of gain. I think the original series had a bit of a weird effects loop where it was kind of placed in front of the gain, so a lot of time-based effects kind of sounded weird, but I think in the Mark II and the Mark III they got that sorted out. I don't know why I've never really had oranges, but I've spent a lot of time in studios that had oranges and rehearsal rooms with oranges and gigs where the backline was made up of Rockaverbs. I really like this amp. I want to put it in C for some reason, but I really like it, so let's put it in B. Soldano SLO100, S tier. Effects loop, not good. Clean sounds, not too good. But if it wasn't for this amp, you wouldn't have the PV5150, you wouldn't have the dual rectifier, and then so many amps that have led on from that. So what can you say? It has to go in the S tier. Look at the players, look at the sounds that have been recorded. It has to be S tier. But remember I said I can have 2, so 2. Blackstar St James, I played it at 42 Gear Street. I loved it. It's lightweight, which I like. It's 2 channels, both of the channels. Specifically, this is the 6L6 version, which is the more high gain metal version. I haven't had a chance to try out the EL34 version, and I've heard it's quite a different amp. So we're not talking about that one here. Just the 6L6 high gain. Love the sound of it. I think that it's a versatile amp. Any kind of high gain sound that you really want, you can work out and you can get. A lot of people have a problem with they call it the laptop transformers that they use. Sounded good to me. I'm going to put in the B tier. Oh, Blackstar, probably some of the nicest people you'll ever meet. I think it's written in the rules that you're not allowed to be a dick if you work at Blackstar, because everybody I've ever met or spoke to that works at Blackstar, just literally the nicest people. And I'm so glad that their amps are good as well. So it seems a bit mean putting them on the B tier, but I think it's where it belongs. That amp in the price rate, that's where it belongs. Hughes and Kettner, this is the Triamp, which is like, I don't know if it's their flagship anymore, but I spent quite a bit of time with this, done a recording session, had one there. Ooh, didn't like it at all. See, millions of sounds in there, just couldn't find a decent sound. It was so much easier to plug into this specific recording situation. We had my diesel VH4, a 5150, a rectifier, this amp, maybe some others, and you could plug into the diesel straight away. Brilliant sounds. Plug into the 5150 straight away. The Mesa, we had enough experience between us that we knew how to dial in a rectifier, and that sounded good. The H&K is just, I didn't enjoy a single sound that we came up with that day, and I've played some since, and it's not for me. I know a lot of people love them, and I think they're quite good value for money now. You can get them quite cheap, but not for me. Bogner Ubershell, I've always wanted a Bogner Ubershell. I think it's probably the Auto Bridge thing and the Tronti things. And also, I think Avenged Sevenfold City of Evil, that was Bogner Ubershell as well, probably a load of other stuff. They look good, they sound good, I love it. It's going to go on the A tier for me, because the Diesel VH4 has to be S tier. It's my favourite amp of all time. The Channel 1, best clean sound. It's like a Fender Twin. Some people say they don't like the Channel 1. I don't know what they're talking about. Channel 2, JCM 800, the perfect JCM 800. Channel 3, obviously the channel that a lot of people buy the amp for. You can't beat Channel 3. Channel 4, again, just the best lead sound. Like, if I could only have one amp, that would be the amp. I'll never get rid of the VH4. I've got the cab to go with it, the 212, front-loaded 212 vintage 30s. I would play anywhere, anytime with that amp, because it's just, for me, it's the best amp ever. Yeah, it's expensive. I bought mine used about 10 or more years ago, and it's never let me down. It's my perfect amp. If you think I've missed out any amps, or if you want to tell me about your favourite amp, please leave it in the comments below. If you think that I've got something completely wrong, let me know. I'm sure you will. Let me know if you think that it was fair, or if my reasoning was unfair, or whatever. Just let's have a chat. So yeah, this was actually pretty fun. This is a different kind of piece of content that I don't usually put on my channel, so I'd like to do more of this. If you'd like to see more of this, let me know down below, because I did enjoy doing this, and it's just fun. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in another video.